Hey Threadheads, Darren here. Welcome back. We're going to try doing a little bit of live fly tying today. Just give a few seconds here, see if anybody wants to join the stream. Get adjusted here with the camera. So what I thought we would do is I could go ahead and tie some of these patterns, and if you have any questions, I'm going to have a second screen here, and I'll just go ahead and after I tie each pattern, I'll just check to see if we have any questions, and we can have a look from there. All right, just give me 1 second and I'll get this stuff set up and then we'll get started here. All right, so we're just going to start off with some pretty simple stuff. So the first one we're going to do, just going to start off with like a tan colored leech here. So what do I need? So one important thing that I think I might have forgotten here is the eyes for this pattern. So let me just check here. All right, so now we're ready. So I've got a hook in the vise. So for hooks, today I'm going to be tying everything on the same hook here. We're going to be using same as we did in the regular demo. It's a Mustad R75. And we'll start off with a tan colored one. Just see what I got for thread here. Just going to go ahead and use a blue dun thread. So if you watch the regular demo, you can kind of see the process there. All right, so just put on a little base layer of thread. Bring the thread back up. Tie in the eyes, and we'll use just like cross wrap just to set it. And then we'll go the opposite direction, give it a little bit of a torque, straighten it out. And we'll just go around the bottom here just to give that a little bit of stability on the hook shank. I like to just give it a tug every once in a while just to help get those stuck in place really well. All right. Then we'll add just a touch of head cement. I'll just give it a pretty good drop in there. And then that's all just going to soak into the thread wraps. It doesn't hurt if you add extra wrap on top there. All right, so we're going to start off with the tail. And I've just got a piece of marabou here. This one's a little bit trashy. It's not something that I would use for one of my palmered flies, so we're going to salvage it by using up some of the fibers here. You can kind of see how I roll those down to bundle them. Then we'll trim off the bottom. Then we'll tie those in just behind the eye. We'll wrap them down just on top of the hook shank. You can leave the tail like that if you want, but I like a little bit chunkier tail. So just kind of pull everything down, rip it off. You don't want it too symmetrical though. I think we'll just beef that up a little bit with a few more fibers here. All right, looks good. Clean that up. And so for the body on this one, I'm just going to use this Leech yarn. So it's Mohair yarn. I can't remember what brand it is. It might be a Wapsi product here. So what we do, just pull back all those fibers, kind of give it just basically just the core that you want to tie in. Tie that in on top. Give that a few wraps. And we'll just take our thread up to the top. I'm just going to add a half hitch in there, just so that it doesn't slide off. And then we're just going to take this, I like just pull all these fibers back on the Leech yarn, just so you got them nice, sweeping backwards kind of thing. So this would be your most basic Geek Leech. And for this, you want the turns to be mostly touching. And we just want to pull back that material on each wrap. And once we get that wrapped all the way, we'll comb it out, loosen up these fibers back here. So at the eye, we'll just come over, under the hook, over the other way. And then we'll come straight under. Then we'll add an extra wrap or two right at the front. Trim that off. All right, so we lost that, so we'll just capture that before it unravels. Lock it in place here. All right, and we'll give that a quick whip finish. Clean up that head just a little bit with those whips. It's definitely not the prettiest fly I've tied today, but it's gonna do. This one's gonna go in the fishing box. I just want to kind of give you an idea of all the different, or not all the different, but a few of the different variations we could have in here. So now we're just gonna give that a good brush out. You can kind of see how all those fibers got trapped. Kind of pull them out and kind of releases a little bit of the motion that you're going to get with this fly. So there you go. That's the first variation, just like a tan Geek Leech. All right, let's move on to a second one here. We'll do a, let's go with a blind version. And for this one, so when you refer to a fly being blind, you'll see this a lot in saltwater patterns. And basically all that refers to is that we don't have any weight, no eyes, no barbell, no bead chain, anything like that. For eyes where traditionally a pattern might have eyes. So if you look at something like a gotcha or any of those shrimp patterns where traditionally they have bead chain eyes or brass eyes, on the blind version they're just going to omit the eyes and just tie it the rest of the fly normally. All right, so let's go with we'll do an olive for this one. So just go ahead, we'll start off with a bit of marabou. Again, the process is the same for all the flies, just a little bit of a difference in how you put it together. So you just don't want to put your marabou right up at the eye there. You can put it a little bit further than you would on the eyed versions. And we'll just rip off the tail there. If you want, you can tie the marabou in so that it ends exactly where you want it to without having to rip it to length. But you get a bit of a wispier tail. Kind of like this, it gives you a bit more of a full tail. You can combine those two if you want. Kind of gives you a bit of each. You can add a little bit of weighted wire to these if you want as well. Haven't done it to this one, but you definitely could. A few wraps. If you're going to do that, you want to weight it towards the front. And again, you get that undulation, but this is one that you're going to use if you're fishing in areas that are a little bit weedy. I forgot to change my thread here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, so I'm going to maybe add a second color on here. Maybe just a little bit of this burnt orange for the top. So this piece of marabou doesn't have a lot of length, so we'll just work with it at its full length there. All right. Gives it a little bit of a different color. And so for this one, I'm just going to use some green mohair. Again, if you have any questions, just post them to the comments, and after I tie each pattern, I'll have a look and answer the questions. So again, we'll tie that in just behind the eye, and you always want to keep that eye fairly clear as much as possible. We'll bring that back up. give that a wrap. Again, you just want to pull all this mohair back as you wrap. Sometimes there's not a lot of fibers coming off there, but once you give it a brush after your fly is completed, a lot of those fibers will kind of pull out. All right, so we'll pull everything back here. We'll tie that off just behind the eye. Let's pull this back this time so we don't have another mishap. Make sure that's locked in place. Come here and trim that out. Give that a quick whip finish. And I always like to give a second whip finish just to make sure that fly is going to stay together. Excuse me. A little bit of head cement. And then we're going to just brush this one out. This one's a little bit easier to brush out just because you don't have to worry so much about the eye getting in the way there. So you just give that a vigorous brushing and kind of pull it out to the side and then back. So this one's going to be a fairly light fly, and that mohair is going to trap actually quite a bit of air. So this is a good one to fish in weedy areas, and this can just fish right above the weed beds. If you strip it through there, you get some pretty good takes. All right, let's do another one. I might have to switch out the battery on that. Just give me 1 second. All right, so let's do a black version here. Just gonna grab a 70 denier thread here. Start on at the eye. Wrap back to the bend of the hook. And then we'll come back up just about like 1/4 of the way up. So for this one, I thought might do a version with a dubbing loop. You can kind of see the difference in how that puffs out compared to doing something with the mohair thread or yarn. So again, we'll just tie those eyes on really quick, get them to a point where we like how secure they are. A little bit of head cement, a couple extra wraps just to secure it. Then we'll head back down to the bend of the hook. So when I'm going through marabou, I usually keep all the stuff that I don't use for palmering, like Alaska booze or hobo space, stuff like that. And so you get kind of, I wouldn't say it's garbage, but it's not great for using for palmered flies. So anyways, I like to save all that stuff for tying woolly buggers and leeches. So let's take a clump of that. It's a good way to use up all your marabou and not waste a lot of it. I'm just going to pick some of the stuff out of the bottom there so it's not too bulky in the body. So for this one, I'm going to measure how long I want the tail, and then I'll trim that up accordingly. Get a few wraps in there, make sure it's where we want it. Maybe got a little bit long, so we'll pull a couple of those fibers off the back. So for this, I'm just going to use this dubbing twister tool. So just basically give yourself a little bit of thread. Then you hook the tool on there and then pull it down to give yourself however much rube you need. I'm going to do about 3.5, 4 inches. So we'll close that loop. Then we'll take our thread up to the front here. Just sit it up here. Put a half hitch in there. Just want to make sure that doesn't hop off while we're doing our thing here. So I got a little bit of laser dubbing here. If you want to go ahead and use Mohair, by all means, go ahead. This laser dub has a pretty good pile, and by pile it just refers to the length that the yarns have been cut in. So it's probably about inch to half inch to an inch, I suppose. So what I like to do when I'm working with dubbing like that is just kind of get a ball, and then we'll just grab a few fibers and then pull them straight out so you get this nice long stuff here. And once we got that, we'll open up our loop and just stick it in there. We'll just continue doing that. You just kind of fill up your loop that way. Till you get your 3.5 inches or so. And then we're going to give that a good twist once we got that filled. All right, looks good. Sometimes what I like to do, especially if you have a rotary vise, is just turn that on its side. And then give your dubbing loop a twist, and then doesn't pull in too many of your materials here. Kind of see that piece of marabou wanting to get in there. All right. So there we've got our dubbing loop. We can comb this out right now, or we can wrap it around. I think just going to give that a little bit of a brush just to get it started here. It's a little light at the back end, So if I was going to do that again, you want to make sure you put a little bit extra at the back here just to make sure you got that full. All right, and then we'll just simply wrap this. Again, we're just going to pull all those fibers backwards. We don't want to trap them underneath as much as we can. Avoid it. So we're a little bit short on our dubbing there, so we can create another dubbing loop and fill it in. Just make sure you close off the old one. I don't think we have enough. Add another dubbing loop per se, so we're just going to take a little bit of dubbing, just kind of like pull it over top, kind of almost like a veil for an egg. Then you kind of get that same effect. As long as you got everything tied in, you should be okay. All right, watch me struggle here with this simple whip finish knot. All right, so we'll give that a little bit of head cement. And we'll give it a good brush. And then I'll just show you the difference between the one that's done with a dubbing loop versus the yarn. So the dubbing loop is not too bad. Once you get the hang of it, it's fairly easy. But it's nice to have the convenience of the yarn as well. But with this, the dubbing loop, you can add a little bit of the UV in there also. Kind of gives you a different look. A little bit of sparkle in there without overpowering the fly. You can kind of see the difference here. You can kind of see the core. This one's a little bit thicker, I suppose. But you can kind of see the core there, and then it wisps off the end, whereas this one, it's a little denser. Of course, if you use a mohair dubbing, we'll change that a little bit as well. So the only other variation I thought we might try out here is to show you what it looks like if we use a dubbing brush versus using the dubbing loop. Right, so just throw a hook in there. And I'm going to use the black here again. Maybe we'll just do a blind version here. So again, we'll take a little bit of marabou. We'll we'll bulk that up a touch. Trim that off. Come up here, we'll clean up this head. You want to make sure you always leave enough room to build a nice tapered head at the front. All right, so we're going to grab the stubbing brush that we created earlier and tie that in along the side here. And we're going to need our side cutter. So this one here is going to be a really durable fly with that metal core. So you're not going to have to worry about this one coming apart so much. So again, we'll just kind of wrap back, pull these fibers back as we go. And just want to get up to the head here. This core on this one's a little bit thicker than I had anticipated, but should be fine. So got that where we want it, so we'll come in here, cut that out. Then we'll wrap that down. Just want to make sure you got the wire trapped in there. Then we'll create a nice little head on the fly and give it a good brushing. There we go, and there's your dubbing brush version. So this one's a little bit heavier than I would like, to be honest, but we'll brush that out quite a bit. This might make a good one for pike. So yeah, when you're brushing that, you can be pretty harsh on it, especially with the wire core on this one now. So this one has a little bit of, I think it's a black Angelina fiber, like a black pearl, as well as, I believe it's actually mohair in this one. So, well, anyways, there you go. There's a few different variations of the Geek Leech. Hope that kind of helps round it out for you. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. And if you have any other ideas for doing a live presentation of a few different patterns, I have a couple ideas for some upcoming ones, and I'd love to do that for you. Anyways, it's nice to be back after a bit of a hiatus over the summer. Hope everybody watching can get a little bit of a takeaway from this. And thanks everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.